A few months ago, in a Skype cast far, far away. After credits. Episode 3, Rising Revengeance. War! The fandom is crumbling under attacks by ruthless gatekeepers. There are victims on both sides. Idiots everywhere. But, in a stunning move, the evacstation leader, AJ Waseska, has swept onto the internet with the After Credits podcast to steal the hearts and minds of film and Star Wars fans alike. And if they like what they hear, they go to patreon.com/evacstation. For less than the cost of an Order 66 at the local Burger Empire, you can have it your way with early releases of exclusive content and the ability to request specific episodes or films to be covered for this show. Again, that's patreon.com/evacstation. And, if you're not with us, then you're our enemy. Welcome to the After Credits cast. Some may consider this podcast to be unnatural, but I say fuck you and the younglings you killed on the way in here. We are Rai Bakameters, and I am your host, General Grievances, and boy, do I have a list of them for this trilogy.
General Grievances. Oh, that's so good.
I've been working on these. This is my season to shine.
General Grievances is definitely top tier.
And if you like our top tier humor and puns, which I imagine someone out there does, you can go to our social media pages, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and tell us all about them. You can also find our show on Patreon, YouTube, Peepa, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever you want to call it, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podcast Addict. Leave us reviews, that helps us get more views, and leave comments down below telling us what kind of puns you like, or how much you just loved those children dying in that movie. Not in real life, of course. That's not happening. We're not going to talk about that. And if you want to email us directly about your non-controversial opinions about this non-controversial movie, you can hit us up at what email, Ryan?
That email is asthmaticcyborgs at excuse me. Excuse me. That is evacstation@gmail.com.
I'm not one to criticize a political regime, Ryan, but it appears to me that if you have the money to build a Death Star and have the money to make a clone army, surely you have enough money to give your top lieutenant a proper fucking breathing apparatus.
No, see, pain is part of the dark side, and it's absolutely a part of his training to overcome his feeble organic constitution, despite the fact that most of him is fucking robotic anyway.
I mean, it's like putting all your money towards some dumb construction project no one really actually supports to solve a problem that doesn't actually exist, and then say, oh no, I can't afford to give you all, like, you know, a proper education or health care or, you know, better gun laws. No, we can't afford that. It's going to the thing, the Star of Death. Gotta keep those rebels out, if you know what I mean. I'm sorry, it was there. Had to take it.
Never mind. What we need to talk about is blaster registration laws. I mean, next we have. So, what movie are we doing today, AJ?
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves there, Ryan. First off, we have a What You Watching segment. We talk about what we've been watching this past week. I finished and started the thing, but Ryan, if you want to go first, I'll let you have at it.
Oh, well, me and Allegra decided to give The Boys a shot. It's currently on Amazon Prime. They've got season 1 up there, and so far I'm really, really digging it. It's very graphic.
I was gonna say, so what is the show? I know it has something to do with superheroes, but that's like the extent of my knowledge. I don't have Amazon Prime, so I out of the loop.
Yes, so the first season's on Amazon Prime, and it's got Carl Urban, who's always a fucking delight to see. The main gist of the show is it's a modern take on superheroes who are kind of not necessarily controlled by, but kind of backed by like a mega conglomerate corporation type entity, and it shows superheroes that have really gotten into abusing their power and just are all around just god awful people. And of course, the protagonists are a bunch of non-powered people whose goal is to expose the truth behind the superheroes and whatnot. So it's a really, it's a kind of like a powerless taking on the powerful vibe. It's got shades of The Watchmen in it. And if you guys have ever read Robert Kirkman's comic Invincible, you're definitely going to love the aspects of that in there as well. But Allegra and I always love these kind of, these askew glances at like what superheroes would be if they just kind of went haul off into like abusing their power, or like the worst aspects of humanity granted superpowers. So it's really, really interesting, and I'm having a ball. I can't wait to finish the first season.
Worst aspects of humanity getting superpowers. That sounds similar to a very current issue going on in recent times. Not that I'm gonna, point fingers or claim any specific instances regarding, weapons or mass shootings or very disturbed people. But anyway, I will jump in real quick with something a little less controversial. So, my What You Watchin', I started the thing and finished the thing, as I said a minute ago. I finished Astra Lost in Space, which I talked about last week.
Nice.
It's a short series, actually. The manga itself's only 49, 59 chapters, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
And remember how I said it's about these kids who go on a space camp trip thing and they get lost in space through some weird wormhole doodad?
Yeah.
So it gets significantly more complicated than that in the last, in the last 10 chapters, maybe? 10 or 15, it gets significantly more complicated. And I'm like, oh boy, you guys saved your best left turns for this, and I applaud. This is good shit. I don't want to spoil anything by any means, but let's just say that everything you think you know at the beginning of the series is fucking turned on its head in the last act. It's so dang good how it does it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yep.
Seriously.
And it's a minimal time commitment, and the anime just started last when I first brought it up. So if y'all haven't checked it out yet, Astra Lost in Space. It's a real page turner. And then I started on a whim, because Amanda and I are between shows right now, and she wanted to rewatch old sitcoms that she's seen before. And I'm like, no, I want to watch something new, but, we don't have the time to sit down and watch hour-long episodes of shit. So we compromised by watching a show that she has seen some of, but not all of, and a show I have seen none of, but I know is, from what I've heard, is very good. We started Parks and Rec.
Yay! Oh, it's so good.
So let me just say this real quick. So when I first tried watching it when it first came out, way back in 2009, and the first season is a bit of a dud for me. It's got its moments, but the first season is much like The Office, the first season, where it's kind of trying to find its voice, trying to find its sense of humor, and it's not bad, but it's definitely a bit slow at times. Second season gripped me pretty good, and it's just kept dragging me along ever since. It's a fucking great time. Personal shoutouts to both Chris Pratt, who is just amazing in everything he's in, and Nick Offerman, who is just the best character in any moment ever. He's great. Just awesome. I'm in the season right now.
Oh, man,
I'm in season 3 where she's running for city council. So, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
It's a fantastic show, honestly. I'm glad you're jumping into it.
And we're hoping to get back into Supergirl soon because of the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths thing that they've been pushing at the... I guess for you guys listening, Comic-Con was a while ago, but news articles have been dropping here and there ever since it came out, and each thing makes me more interested in it, and I'm going to have to catch up. It's the only show I'm behind on. Unless you count Arrow, which I don't watch, or the other show, the Time Traveler one. What's that one called again?
The Time Traveler one is funny.
I just haven't got into it. There's just so many characters. I'm like, I'm not invested in any of them. I'm just gonna hold off on that one for now. I don't know. Flash has got me for the whole long haul because it's Flash. I like Flash. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for updates on that and other shows I get into. Next week I'll be talking about a game I finished recently that I've been putting off talking about for the fact that I just keep forgetting about it. Ryan knows what it is.
I will hold my peace. I will hold my peace.
And speaking of holding your peace, let's talk about this week's movie. We're going back on another trip to a galaxy far, far away. This time, we're talking Revenge of the Sith. Written and directed by George Lucas, the film earned a gross worldwide total of $848 million, which is 7.5 times what it cost. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Lucas, you may not be the best writer or director in the room, but you sure know how to fucking budget your shit.
Yeah, this movie was going to make bank, even if it was like utter garbage, which it wasn't. But
it's a step above garbage. If it was in a glass bottom boat, I could see garbage right through the bottom, if you know what I mean. The cast includes several names you're familiar with and a few you're not familiar with, including Matthew Wood, Peter Mayhew, Kenny Baker, Ahmed Best, Tamura Morrison, Christopher Lee, Anthony Daniels, Frank Oz, Jimmy Smits, Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson, Ian McDermott, Natalie Portman, the great Ewan McGregor, and the Yunlin killing son of a bitch, Hayden Christensen. I forgot to put awards for this movie, but I can't imagine it got anything positive.
It made 7 times what it cost. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Ryan, why don't you give us some fun facts? I'll bring it by IMDb for the awards. I forgot to write those down.
It's fine. We do have a couple of fun facts for you guys. First of which, the original cut of this movie ran nearly 4 hours long. The opening battle and Palpatine rescue alone ran over an hour. The extra footage of Palpatine rescue scene is actually shown in the video game for this movie, however. So they managed to use some of that B-roll. But just absolute kudos for the editors saying, no, let's not have a movie 4 hours long. Let's not do that. So good on them. Second fact, Samuel L. Jackson, also known as Mace Windu, Jedi Master, said he knew that he must die in this movie, so he told George Lucas that he would only do the movie if Mace Windu goes out in a blaze of glory and not, quote-unquote, like some sucker. On an American late-night talk show, he confirmed that he did indeed have a meaningful death scene and does not go out like some punk. I think only Sam Jackson can actually make this demand.
Did he not go out like a punk, though? I mean, he just got thrown out a window by some old man in his lightning. I mean...
Well, I mean,
and he was ganged up on by some little emo bitch. I mean, come on.
To be fair, he went head-to-head with the guy who literally took over the galaxy. And he was holding his own, but Anakin he ambushed him.
I want to see the reality where Mace Windu won that fight, because that would have been cool.
I mean, in the non-canonized lore, Mace Windu is like one of the deadliest lightsaber combatants of all time.
Oh no, I remember.
He's a master of all fucking 7 forms of lightsaber combat. The 7th of which is so dangerous to Jedi because it actually like requires that you enjoy the fight and really get into it, which kind of eschews the whole Jedi inner peace thing. And I'm getting on my tangent. I'm sorry.
Well,
suffice it to say, Mace Windu was boss. I'm glad he got to have an extended fight scene against the Emperor. He got to go out like a G, and he got to showcase exactly how strong the Emperor was, which
Well,
it was good.
I was
It was
going
good.
to add. I remember reading in the the Revenge of the Sith book. Actually, they discuss a little bit of the lightsaber styles, and I remember specifically what you were talking about, where his the style you're mentioning. It's like a high intensity power style kind of thing, where he's considered to be the only one who's really capable of pulling it off. And I remember they differentiated that, or they explained it as Yoda's the speed style. They simplified it from what I remember, but Yoda's speed style, and Obi-Wan's uber defense style, which is why they picked him to go against Grievous more than anything. So,
oh, trust me, we're gonna talk about the lightsaber forms later on. I can't talk about this movie and not bring up the lightsaber forms of combat.
Kids, if you were wanting an hour-long podcast about lightsaber forms, you've come to the right place. If not, get out of here.
Additional fun facts: I have actually given a 20-minute presentation on the forms of lightsaber combat in college for a class. I actually did that.
I did a history of ninjas in one of my classes, so don't feel bad, Ryan. I'm right there with you.
Did you actually bring a katana in and actually showcase a couple of the traditional forms of ninjutsu?
I believe this is before I actually owned a katana, but I would have if I had one.
'Cause I did! God damn it. I'm such a fucking geek. We have one final fun fact before we get on to initial thoughts and the synopsis. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen trained for 2 months in fencing and fitness in preparation for the epic battle towards the end of the movie. As a result of their practice, the speed at which Kenobi and Vader engaged the duel in the completed movie is actually the speed that it was filmed and not digitally accelerated. Kudos on these guys, because that fight was hot. That fight was really, really good.
Oh, I get it, because they're in a volcano.
Alright, good job. Well done, son.
I tried. Okay, so initial thoughts real quick. We're going to skip awards, because I looked at it. They won some music awards, some special effects awards, and, of course, the Razzie for Hayden Christensen. We've been there. We've done that. We can move on. Initial thoughts. It's stupid in some bad ways, but I think there's a lot of effort here that was actually brought to the table here, and I remember going to the theater, and I actually had friends crying at Anakin's downfall, while I was just in the theater with them hyped for the lightsaber duels, because they were pretty solid for this one. Maybe a little over the top, sure, but they were fun, nonetheless. And, I gotta say, of all the things, though, they really did Grievous dirty, and I'm bummed by that. I'm really bummed.
They did.
You hyped him up with Clone Wars, and you fucked it. Anyway, Ryan, your initial thoughts.
My initial thoughts, this is a movie that requires a lot of buy-in in order to enjoy it. You have to really be into the movie and along for the ride, in order to hit all the notes it wants you to. When I watched this originally, I was one of those folks that were crying at the execution of Order 66. It was just oh my god, the Jedi Order is falling! Oh no, the kids! The babbies! We're gonna fight in the volcano! Let's go! Yoda versus the Emperor! Let's do this! I was definitely one of those. Now, at almost 30, with a little more perspective, I can definitely see the flaws in the movie. But, like AJ said, the effort is there. You can tell they poured a lot of themselves into this movie, and there are definite things that they wanted to really hit home, and I think they succeeded in some aspects. If you don't pay too much attention to the flaws, it's a very good movie. But the flaws are there, and if you see them, then it takes you out of it a good deal.
And I want to say, too, something I didn't notice until the most recent viewing. This movie is still very politically relevant. You wouldn't think so for a 2000... Is this 2008? What did I say it was? 2008? No, it had to be 2006 or 2007. But, yeah.
Yeah, because it came out while I was in
high school.
School.
But no, for a movie that's over 10 years old, it's surprisingly politically relevant. So kudos to you, Lucas, for being with the times. Kudos.
There was something about the death of liberty and Anyway, let's get to the synopsis, yeah?
Indeed. Clone Wars happened. Watch the cartoon if you want to know more backstory. Our two Jedi heroes, meanwhile, are flying into a random hodgepodge of CGI nonsense to look for the flagship where a kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine is waiting for them. With the aid of R2-D2, they save him, kill Dooku, and manage to get a crash landing of half a ship in the middle of a busy city. Yeah, typical Thursday. The Council, now realizing how blind they are, ask Anakin to spy on the Chancellor for suspicious workings with the Sith, maybe. Obi-Wan would like to help, but is sent out to some fuck-off planet to fight General Grievous. Which sucks because Anakin is being manipulated in his conversations with Palpatine, and you all know where that's going. He reveals himself to Anakin. Gross. Anakin goes to the Council to tell the teachers what he did, and the Council rolls out.
Roll out.
Autobots, transform and roll out!
Optimus Prime the Jedi.
Autobots, let's go.
I am Master Optimus Prime, Master of the Seven Jedi lightsaber fights.
Keep going.
Unfortunately, Palpatine is very spry for an old political fuckwad, and kills most of the Jedi sent to kill him. Windu's the last one standing, but is killed when Anakin interferes like a jackass. Palpatine, now revealed as Darth Sidious, gives Anakin the name Darth Vader, and sends him to kill the Jedi in the temple, and then to Mustafar to kill the Separatist leaders who he's been puppeteering this whole time. Sidious then issues Order 66 to all the clone troopers, which is a pre-programmed directive to kill all the Jedi generals. Conveniently, the two Jedi we need for the original films to survive do survive, and no one else. Unless you believe that spin-off stuff, which we're not going to talk about here. This is about movies. Conveniently, read the line. Yoda and Obi-Wan find out through contrived methods what happened and decide to split up. Obi-Wan will face Anakin in hopes of getting him to see the error of his ways, and Yoda will face Palpatine because he's got to do something, I guess. Both their plans fail, mostly, but not without minor victories. Anakin is now a cripple who has learned the value of the high ground. Padme is dead, but her kids are separated and hidden away from Daddy Skywalker. And Palpatine, okay, I guess he won. Yoda and Obi-Wan are going on into hiding until the next trilogy arrives and a new hope comes from the ashes of the fallen Republic. Huh? Get it? Movie titles?
Yeah.
References?
Yeah, you did it.
So Ryan, what do you think of this epic grand finale of the first trilogy?
I like as closure for the prequel trilogy, I think it does its job well. I think the best thing about this movie is that it the other two movies were trying to experiment with different genres to really get into it and try to expand their reach, see exactly what muscles they can flex on those things. But the third one, they bring it back home and they're like, okay, this is the big stuff. This is Anakin's fall. This is the destruction of the Jedi Order. This is the rise of the Galactic Empire. You know, they choose to focus on the big story points and the emotional impact of the story points, and you can feel the focus shift when they do that. For the better, I think. There are still some flaws in the movie, definitely, but I like the lens of focus that they use. Instead of trying to do something new, they're like, okay, now let's bring it on home.
I guess we'll hit this first question, which is what we see is improved from the first two films, and I think you're hitting it right there. Where we had a first film that kind of was focused, but it was a little boring and didn't really quite find its true voice of what it wanted to do. Second film was everywhere, no focus, no organization. It just threw everything in the kitchen sink, which ironically is, a joke that the movie does here with a ship being blown up and you can see a little CGI kitchen sink. Anyway, but in this film, they focused down. They were like, okay, we're one movie away from The New Hope. We need to figure out what happens between here and there, so that way we're just at that movie. And they're like, okay, well, we can't do any more mysteries. We can't do any more comedy. We can't do any more of this. Let's just focus on the story. And they do it, by and large, the way they should. There's definitely a few things that could have been made more efficient. There's a few things that could have been done a little bit better. But I think trimming down the fat was a smart move on their part for this one. I also want to give a few quick shout-outs to certain actors. Obi-Wan Kenobi, as always, you delivered. Good work. Applause.
Absolutely.
Hayden Christensen, I think it's undeserved flack for this one.
He got better.
He did.
Better.
I want to say that if anyone's seen the Nostalgia Critic video where he talks about the 11 best things his trilogy does, he does say that in the third film, and I agree with him, Anakin is not just better, but they do something with him that they can't do in the previous films. He is physically imposing, and when he's just staring, when he's doing his dark, menacing thing, he's surprisingly good at making that kind of feel dark and menacing.
Yeah, I mean the costume choice with just like him with the dark robes, the messy kind of like the curly hair, and just he can finally like give that look. Like he's grown enough, and his character is at a point enough where you can definitely see there are shades of that darkness in him. Note, it is done infinitely better in Clone Wars.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue that one. You're talking CGI Clone Wars,
better,
right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
It's done infinitely better in Clone Wars because you can see how Anakin is widely regarded as a war hero. He has like the charisma and the general strength and combat prowess to like lead men into battle, to have people like really like believe in him and be with him. And you can see like how in wartime, if he's on your side, this dude is definitely a hero. But when you're running with him, there are times when that strength kind of goes a little far, and he kind of dips a little evil, and somebody pisses him off a little too much, and you start seeing that Vader come out of him, and the character arc is more convincingly done.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, that's because they had like dozens of episodes to work with, but we've already made that point with the last one.
And I also want to say that the lore they try to shove in this film. So in the previous movies, they're very plot focused. There's not a lot of like backstory. They're more focused on getting the plot out. They're just like setting up for this movie. Here, you actually get to have the movie slows down a little bit and actually has a few moments to elaborate some like lore details with the Dark Plagueis stuff, and that's kind of cool. Because we haven't really seen that since A New Hope, when we had well, okay, maybe it might have been later films in that trilogy, but I mean, the best example I can give is the allusion or the references to Clone Wars in A New Hope. And this kind of goes on that similar level of, oh hey, let me tell you this story about what happened back in the day, and it kind of sets up for the events to come in this film, and it's pretty well done. So I'm not saying this movie is flawless, but there are definitely some shining gems of good ideas here, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
With that in mind, to my first question beyond that, unless you have any other notable improvements you want to throw out there.
No.
Okay. Was it wise to jump to the end of the Clone Wars so quick?
I mean, I think there was no other way to do it. With everything considered, jumping to the end of the Clone Wars made the most sense because it allowed them to give, like, pretty much the entirety of this movie towards, like, sticking the landing of the trilogy. You know, like, there are a lot of amazing things that happened in the Clone Wars, and they would have been amazing to see on the big screen. But there are, I mean, we talked about this last week, but there are, like, dozens of stories that are really, really, really good, and all of them would have required time to tell properly, and that would have detracted from bringing the story to a good conclusion. So, I mean, by all means, please go watch the Clone Wars. It's fantastic. But, like, I appreciate them allotting this entire movie to sticking the landing as opposed to trying to fit too many things in.
I get you. I think I would have, and this is Monday morning quarterbacking or whatever the hell we're calling it now, but if it were me, I would have definitely merged the aspects of the first two films, Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, together, and then had a middle film called The Clone Wars, and then led to this. I feel like And I wouldn't even say you need to do, like, the entirety of the Clone Wars, but, like, a highlight or two to kind of show, like, the struggles they're going through, Anakin's growth. That could have been really interesting. Especially on big screen, especially if you did something like the Asajj Ventress storyline. That could have been really neat. But I feel like just jumping to the end of it, I feel like there's so many things you miss out on, and I get it, they're out there, but for the casual fan, they're missing out on it, and I hope that some of them are convinced to go check it out. If not how many seasons was it? Like 6 seasons of the CGI 2008 show?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time commitment for that, at least watch like the 2-hour Tartakovsky stuff from 2003. That stuff's still really good. Holds up really well.
That stuff is also still really good.
But yeah, no, that's definitely how I would put that one. So before we get to anything too specific, Ryan, I think we already discussed a little bit, but in case there's anything we missed, were there any scenes that worked best for you, and was there anything that you think didn't work at all? Scene-wise.
Are we excluding lightsaber fights?
We can exclude lightsaber fights. I think that's definitely more an action set piece than an actual, like, scene, I would say.
Because that last one was really well done. Actually, like, the lightsaber work in this all around was pretty damn good. So, of scenes that worked really well for me,
Okay.
I would... Damn.
Like,
I honestly would say most of the scenes between Palpatine and Anakin took my pick. And the reason why is because, I mean, yes, Anakin's a fucking moron, but...
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Anakin's fucking dumb as a broomstick. Ian McDiarmid might as well be acting with a broom. But, like, watching Palpatine spin this and, like, really, like, weave this web of lies and manipulation just to put this shit in his head. It was fun to watch. And honestly, I'm gonna expound a little bit here, but Palpatine is actually my favorite part of the prequel trilogy in general.
Ooh.
Because watching it from his perspective, this one dude plays like 5 different sides of a war, strategically winning and losing battles between people that he sets up just to push him to the highest seat in the Republic, and to give him enough power to say, you know what, fuck it, all of this is an empire now, we're just going to hold on to this power, and we're going to protect people from the evil Jedi. And just seeing this villain's, like, master plan actually come to fruition, it was really satisfying. Like, it came off pretty much without a fucking hitch.
Yep, we're gonna send those Jedi back to their shithole countries, boys and girls, don't you worry.
Yep, and put them behind the wall. So anyway, the scene that worked least for me, I'd say damn near any scene between Anakin and Padme.
She just can't catch a break in this franchise. Like, I'm hoping that her turn as Thor will be worth our time, and her time as well. But damn, she just can't catch a break in some of these, like, sci-fi action films. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna be frank. I haven't seen a good movie with Natalie Portman. I'm like that. That might sound bad. I personally haven't. If you guys know of any, like, good Natalie Portman films that I should see to kind of turn rebuild my esteem for her as an actress, because I'm sure she's fantastic. She's very well known, but I just haven't enjoyed her in anything. But please let us know in the comments below, or email us with some movies that I should check out if you think Natalie Portman deserves a second look. But yeah, for this movie especially, and the guys at CinemaSins put it best, because Padme's character, if you look at her arc throughout the entire fucking trilogy, she starts as a queen who takes matters into her own hands and fucking, like, goes off to try and enlist help, and then finally says, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself, to this giggling girl in a nightie, like, with her secret boyfriend that nobody should know that she's actually dating. Like, come on, guys. Come on, guys. What are you doing?
Well, let me remind you, Ryan. She is in a couple movies. One movie I have not. She was in Black Swan, which I hear a lot of people say is really good. It's on my short.
I still have to check that out. You're right.
It's on my short list, and I want to see it too. The other one is she's also in V for Vendetta.
Fair. Damn it. All right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
If you go really far back, she's also in Heat, which I didn't know. That's interesting. Oh, and Mars Attacks.
Wait, she's in Heat?
Yeah, she is Lauren Gustafson.
Oh, the girl who slit her. Oh, ooh. Damn. Yeah, that's young Natalie Portman. Yeah.
So she's definitely not without merit, but yeah, no, she has bad luck with these action roles. I'm not sure if it's the directing, the writing, or just her not really feeling it. And I get that. So, in the case of this trilogy, we've said it many times before, or at least I've said it many times before. Lucas is bad at dialogue. The only one who's ever made it sound reasonably good is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's because I think Ewan McGregor is just incapable of delivering things poorly. So, yeah, I think it's largely part of it, because even Anakin has some of the shittiest lines of dialogue, and the two of them together do not deliver well, and the back and forth is just, There's that one scene where he's just staring at her, and he's like, she's like, "Love has blighted you?" And I'm just... Amanda was there, she heard me. I was groaning literally every line they said something. It's not their delivery, guys. It's the DiGiorno. I mean, the dialogue.
Well played, Sam. Well played.
I try. Speaking of dialogue, though, let's talk about Anakin and Palpatine, since you brought it up. How did Anakin or anyone else not see Palpatine's betrayal coming when all he seemed to talk about in this film was the Force and the dark side, and insisting on leaving people behind to die?
Well, okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a slight second.
That's fair.
So Yoda and the rest of the Masters were constantly saying, "Oh, the future is clouded. Everything is hard to see. The influence of the dark side is kind of fucking with our ability to sense what's coming." And da 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 da. Okay, that's a cop out, but okay. Old me would have been like, well, yeah, I mean, they couldn't see the future because the dark side was blinding them. A Sith Lord was fucking hiding in their midst. They couldn't figure it out. But yeah, that's a bit of a cop-out, but okay. Second, Palpatine, Anakin is really the only person that gets to that gets to really interact with Palpatine on that close level. He meets and talks with the rest of the Jedi Masters, and his disguise, his act is flawless. But it's only with Anakin that he starts talking that shit that's like, wait, that's kind of fucked up. Chancellor, what are you talking about? And of course, Anakin's a fucking moron and is very easily manipulated. So it makes sense that nobody really sees that crazy shit until Anakin tells Mace Windu, yo, that guy's a Sith Lord. We need to go take him down. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. All right. Well,
it's funny, too, because, I gave praise to the theater scene for the whole diving into some lore, but it does have some level of, plot holeness where it's he's talking to Anakin about, hey, Anakin, I know this story about this old Sith Lord, Dark Plagueis. You ever hear of this one? And I'm sitting here if I'm Anakin and I hear someone talking about a dark Sith Lord who is not a Jedi on the Jedi Council or anyone who should have knowledge of a Sith Lord, I'm going to start asking some questions. Because why the hell would he know?
Why does the Chancellor know about the teachings of old Sith Lords? Why?
That'd be like going to Trump's office and he's like, "Hey, man, ignore my tiny hands. Did I tell you the story about the spaghetti monster thing that runs all of Scientology?"
What?
And I'd be like, "How do you know about Scientology, Mr. Trump?" He's like, "Oh, because I'm a Scientologist. I need to get the Jedi."
Oh my God.
We gotta kill him. Gotta take him out. We're not advocating to get the president. We should probably cut that. Probably should cut that.
Got away from you a little bit.
Little bit. Anyway, but no, I just feel like that conversation would have raised some red flags. Anakin should have been like, I could ask you about this, or I could tell Mace Windu, hey, this guy said some pretty crazy things at the Playhouse the other night. Y'all might want to go in and just maybe check in on that.
Yeah, but at the same time, he was feeling more and more alienated from the Jedi because Palpatine was whispering fucking poison in his ear. And also, Palpatine was talking about the stuff that he could use to save his life.
Oh yeah, no, he played into his fears and in his anger in the right political ways, like some people.
So,
like some people
there. I mean, it makes sense that he wasn't reacting the way we would, because he was literally stoking every worst fear imaginable and then giving him the solution. And we don't question about whether or not it's morally right or what it would cost the other people. All we think of is, will it actually save my family and my loved ones? And that's how harmful legislation is passed. I'm sorry.
This movie is starting to stir up some stuff, isn't it?
Man, what's the next question?
Okay, so I already know the answer to this one, so we'll just jump to the last part. So, we've both seen the Tartakovsky Clone Wars cartoons. Excellent stuff, by the way. So, how much of a letdown was Grievous after seeing those cartoons?
Man.
Because hear me out. For those who aren't in the know. So, beginning of season 2 of this cartoon, remember it was the last episode of season 1. It was one of those two. Grievous is introduced. And your first introduction is you see all these panicked Jedi wondering, how they're going to get away. They're being cornered. What is that monster that's coming after them? They're all confused. And this motherfucker that looks like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo gets fucking stomped by Grievous, who then fights all, 5 Jedi at the same time, basically, and wrecks their shit. And for the rest of Season 2, he is the main villain, and he is fucking monstrous. And there's even a point in the last episode where he fights multiple Jedi in the attempt to kidnap Count Dooku. He tries to kidnap the Chancellor, and the only thing that slows him down is Windu force crushing him, and it's fucking cool. And my first thought in seeing this movie after going through all that is, man, they probably should have included that Chancellor kidnapping scene in this movie to help explain why such a badass is such fucking shit in this movie.
Well, I mean, if they included that scene, then they would have had to have made him an actual badass in the movie.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted a good Grievous because he's so cool.
I wanted that too, man. I don't know, man. I don't know why they didn't. You could probably talk at a CGI cost because they were already blowing their load with the most ridiculous space battle in the first 3 minutes of the movie. But yeah.
Yeah, but how much
having that monstrous that fucking spooky ass Grievous that could climb on the walls and sneak around and then move in the blink of an eye and fucking murder you with 2 lightsabers. The one that didn't really bust out all 4 unless he thought you were a for real threat. It's just ugh, man.
Yeah.
But this is the same type of shit that kept Count Dooku from being Darth Tyrannus. You know what I mean? The villains got a chance to be more menacing and more terrifying in the Clone Wars because the animation, because the show wasn't limited by physical actors that are 70 years old that can't really do all that crazy shit, or effects of having to do an 8-foot tall CGI monster that's battling Obi-Wan with 4 lightsabers. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like actually even including Darth Maul, every villain in the Star Wars movies gets shafted unless your name is Darth Vader or the Emperor. And I don't know. I feel bad for Kylo Ren knowing this, but I just feel like they could have been a little bit more robust with their villain choices because you have some genuinely good designs and some genuinely interesting characters here. Darth Maul could have been played out a bit better. Darth Tyrannus could have either been cut down or just, respect to Christopher Lee, get an actor who's, more capable of doing the action you're asking him to do. And then Grievous, come on, man, like, that opening scene is all I would have wanted. It's just a train scene, have Windu crush him. You give Windu a cool moment there, too. It's a double whammy. That would have been great.
Would have. It would have.
But moving on, because I know we could be here all day talking about the disappointment of General Grievous. Was Anakin's switch to the dark side a little bit too abrupt? Because, hear me out. In the scene where Windu has Palpatine cornered, Anakin is, like, arguably going back and forth on the decision as to who to help and what's going on, because everything's happening so quick. And then he cuts off Windu's hand and shoves him, and they get shoved out the window. And at first you're like, okay, maybe Anakin's gonna need to, like, back off, cool down or something. But as soon as that happens, he goes all in on this dark side stuff. He drops all the Jedi mumbo jumbo. He puts on the hood. He accepts the new name. He calls Palpatine his master now. And I'm like, oh, so you went from being incredibly apprehensive to, nope, I'm all in. Let's do it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's kind of like in for a penny, in for a pound. And like once you have you ever made a decision like you weren't really sure about it, but then when you finally did it, it's like, well, fuck it. There's literally no going back. So I better I have to make this work. Like this has to fucking go down. Otherwise, I've just shot myself in the foot for no fucking reason.
I believe that decision was making this podcast. Oh.
No, but that's what I think happened. I mean, we've already seen that Anakin had those depths, that darkness in his soul already, and I think a large part of the apprehension was not only betraying the Jedi and turning his back on everything that he had built for the past 20 some odd years, but also saving his wife and saving his loved one, and also the tragedy of losing his mom and not being able to do anything about it, but he finally has the power to do it this time, and he's gonna stop that from happening. And if that means giving in to some of the darkest impulses that he knows he is capable of, he's gonna do it. If he's already betrayed the Jedi and there's no chance of him taking him back because he just got Mace Windu killed, then fuck it, man. Let's just go. Let's do it.
Well, let's break it down here. I'm gonna make a comparison here, and you can tell me how wrong I am if you want. So what we're seeing in this trilogy, and this movie culminates all that, is this happy-go-lucky kid, this character who you wouldn't think would ever turn evil, who turns into this dark, vicious monster at the end, who arguably can't be redeemed. Arguably. And I'd like to think that this likens very similar to Breaking Bad's Walter White, who starts off as this very innocent-seeming teacher who, over the course of 6 seasons, turns into this drug kingpin. He becomes this nice guy to basically Scarface. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do here with this whole thing. But they kind of had to do it fast forward because of all the time skipping between films and the fact that, Walter White had an entire 6 seasons, so many, many more hours to work with. So
and a fantastically talented actor.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not gonna. I'm ignoring that part because that's obvious. But no, I mean, you have a very similar kind of arc happening here. And I think that this arc needed a lot more time to really show Anakin's descent into this. I feel like a lot of decisions he makes throughout these films is quick and abrupt, and not because he wouldn't make them, but just because the plot needs to move forward, and he has to do this at some point. Let's just get it over with now. I definitely feel like the build-up to his, change at that moment, I feel like a little more build-up would have been appreciated, and not even in this film, but in previous films would have been kind of cool too. But I get it, you're pressed for time, and this movie would have been 4 hours had they pushed it too far. So I get it, but just, I don't know, I feel like it is a little rushed with switchover, is what I'm saying.
That's fair. That's definitely fair, and a very good comparison. I think had we been able to play out the entire 20 some odd years of Anakin's life from being picked up by Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon to his inevitable fall. I think seeing all of that stuff in the interim definitely would have painted a better arc for him to travel. But yeah, you're right. And we like we mentioned last week, the fact that that you're working with these three movies, long as they are, it's still not enough time to tell the overarching story and also pay as much attention to this person's character arc as we would like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think his arc is justified. I think his arc is valid. I definitely agree that more time would have given him the ability to flesh it out a little more, and it would have made it more better received and more impactful.
And speaking of Anakin's arc, do you empathize with his situation, and how would you have handled the stresses he is trying to juggle?
I mean,
this is a deeper one.
I get it. I 100% get it. The thing is that the Jedi, the Jedi were literally giving him the Jedi were trying to tell him the wisdom of acceptance, learning to let go, realizing that nothing is permanent in life, and that the closer you are to accepting that, the more at peace you will be, both in life and after it. They were giving him a lot of wisdom, but his own personal traumas and just being a fucking hard-headed dumbass was keeping him from really absorbing it. And I think the ultimate tragedy is that it's his refusal to accept that wisdom, to take that to heart, that really causes everything in his life to go wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's only when he tries to take steps to circumvent this thing that he thinks is destined to happen that the thing actually happens. And had he fucking listened and calmed himself down, gained a little more self-awareness, and trained himself to let go of everything he was scared to lose, he would have lived a lovely, long life with his wife and his children.
Well, to make another comparison, this whole letting go of things you're fearing to lose is the exact same problem Aang had in Last Airbender, at the very last chakra he was trying to unlock. Mm-hmm. So, it's not a concept that even better heroes could overcome easily. So, I understand the struggle to be unwilling to let go of losses like that. I have yet to encounter a massive loss like that. I mean, the closest I could think of would probably be very serious relationships that ended, but I mean, the thing about those is you learn from them, you grow from them, and you become a better person down the road, I think. And I think with Anakin, he never grew or learned what he needed to from the deaths of people like Qui-Gon or the people like his mom. And because he was unwilling or unable to learn, he couldn't mentally and emotionally adjust himself for the possible loss of Padme, which, I don't know, I feel like he doomed... Okay, don't think, it's obvious, he doomed himself, self-fulfilling prophecy and everything. And you have to wonder, could that fate have been avoided at all? Or was that always going to happen no matter what he did?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you mentioned, it's a tough concept to wrestle with, even for the most even the wisest of heroes. But Anakin, who through the Force saw a vision of his mother dying and then being unable to stop it, and then was given another vision of his wife dying, and not being able to, and finally saying, no, not this time, not again. I was younger and I couldn't stop it from happening to my mom. I will stop it from happening to my wife. This is an understandable arc. It was poorly acted, but it was an understandable arc. And the deck was kind of stacked against him. Even if he was wiser, that would still be a tough ass situation. And then of course you've got Palpatine pouring poison in his ear, talking about all the things that he definitely wants to hear. And it's like, oh, well, all you got to do is just pledge yourself to the dark side. I mean, you want to, have you ever heard the story of this old Sith Lord that could stop anybody from dying whenever the fuck he wanted?
He was a real baller, that Sith Lord.
Yeah. Oh, this applies to you directly? You don't fucking say, man. It's too bad the Jedi can't teach that.
It's too bad the Jedi are arrogant and selfish bastards.
Oh my god.
I do want to say, though, had Anakin not been so afraid to talk to somebody about the possible loss of Padme, had he gone to Obi-Wan, even Padme says in the earlier part of the film, I guarantee you Obi-Wan would have been disapproving of the situation, but he would have been understanding and would have helped. He would not have let his bro down like that. I guarantee it. Mace Windu, no Yoda? Okay, they're sticklers. They might have been a bit more of a hard ass about it. But Obi-Wan would have at least been there, be like, okay, this is the situation. Let's see what we can do to fix it.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of the Jedi, were the Jedi wrong? What do you think the key factor was in the fall of the Jedi?
Oh, man.
I personally think the Jedi were wrong. They made some pretty bad decisions leading up to now. But I'm also someone who's against organized religion and all that stuff, so I'm a little bit biased. But, no, I think the over-reliance on believing in this prophecy, which, let's be fair, didn't get a lot of play until this film. Like, it was mentioned in previous films, but not in any major sense of it. Here is where, they really drop it home, and I'm like, if this prophecy is so important, why are you guys treating Anakin like such assholes?
Yeah, well, you're bringing up valid points. You're definitely bringing up valid points. I mean, I think, and especially because I'm one of those assholes who loved the EU so much, you come to, Luke actually comes to understand the failings of the original Jedi Order, this kind of over-reliance on the old teachings and, the complete issuance of everything that it means to be mortal, and just, emotions and what have you. It's that type of, I don't want to say arrogance, closed-mindedness. There's a closed-mindedness that encompasses the Jedi, the early Jedi Order, that doesn't allow for it to grow, that doesn't allow for it to be accepting, and that's definitely one of the failings of the Jedi, because the primary tenets of the Jedi religion were so strict that Anakin was afraid to come to anybody with with his issue, with his problem, like you said.
I wonder if this is supposed to be a metaphor for those who are in involved in and I'm not trying to bash all Christian churches and whatnot, but this is an issue I know what happened with earlier churches, for example. But I wonder if this is an issue with trying to hearken to the ideas of being a homosexual within the Christian church, because back in the day that was a big no-no, and they would do some pretty gross things to those kind of people.
Maybe.
It wasn't. I don't think the translation is handled super well here, but I can definitely see the outlines of something like that here.
Well, so I mean, I can see the outlines of that as well. You're right. I think if we're gonna keep it to the mistakes of the Jedi Order, I definitely think issuing all emotion was just a terrible idea. I believe that at this point, the Jedi Order has stood for a millennia and has never really been really challenged, and so I'd say there was a good degree of arrogance embedded in the Order at this point, which definitely made it easier to topple. One Jedi being surrounded by platoons of trained soldiers that are the genetic copies of one of the most dangerous bounty hunters in the galaxy Yeah, I mean, as soon as the word came and they said, "Okay, go kill him," I mean, that's a tough situation for any Jedi to be in. But they put themselves in it, not thinking that anybody would ever dare turn on the Jedi. So
Even though it's happened multiple
arrogance,
times before.
yeah. So arrogance was definitely there as well.
Yeah. I poke fun at the Jedi for being arrogant, selfish bastards. I do. I don't mean that they're all horrible, but they definitely don't shine super great in this film.
Yeah.
And it's easy to see the negatives of the Jedi Order through Anakin's eyes. I definitely can see it. I think he was a little too far saying the Jedi are evil, because
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
little. That goes to my next question, I guess. Let's just jump right into it. Did the good evil dialogue at near the end of the film feel stilted and awkward to you?
I mean, well, yeah, but
And more importantly, what was the message you think they were trying to get at? Emphasis on trying.
I mean, I don't think are we referring to the dialogue between Anakin and Qui-Gon before and during their fight? I'm sorry, Anakin and Obi-Wan?
I was gonna say, when did Qui-Gon come back? Is he a
Sorry.
zombie?
He was a Force ghost, man. He was watching the whole thing.
Did you know that they actually recorded his dialogue like he was gonna come back for like the Force ghosting thing, but they cut it out last minute? Anyway, I read some more fun facts. There was some good stuff there. Anyway, no, yeah, I definitely mean the back and forth between Anakin and Obi-Wan. So, Ryan, you've seen the series with me. You know what I'm talking about when I say that this has a lot of the same, like, emotional impact as, say, the Naruto versus Sasuke fight, where Sasuke thinks he's stumbled upon a better way of doing what he wants to do, and he goes to join the villains, basically. And in both instances, I feel like while the fight is really cool, the words exchanged and the ideals expressed are not quite up to the standards that the rest of the stuff around it seems to have. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. I think in a better executed trilogy, not just a better executed movie, because they were still trying to do a lot with this movie.
Yeah.
In a better executed trilogy, that ending conversation could have been like an expressing of two like equally well established ideals, and you could see how Obi-Wan was talking, like giving the Jedi party line because he actually believed in it and he saw the wisdom and the teachings, but Anakin had come to see things in a different light. And there are definitely different ways to interpret the Jedi teachings.
As we find out in later films.
Yeah, as we find out in later films. However, I feel like at the end, it's just showcasing how thoroughly manipulated Anakin has become. Rather than really making a valid point and criticism against the Jedi teachings that he's grown up with, it's more just, no, I see through the lies of the Jedi. I can't tell you what those lies are, but I'm gonna do everything that I need to help me out and bring order to my new empire. And I'm like, oh boy, yeah, he's off the deep end, guys. That's it. That's the end.
I'm trying to remember how the dialogue exchange actually goes in the top of my head, because I remember when I first heard it, I turned to Amanda and I made a joke, and the joke was something along the lines of Anakin, you have to pay attention. Trump is evil. From my point of view, the Democrats are evil.
Oh my god.
This movie got some political stirrings going on, I tell you what.
I mean, it's for real though.
It's on point.
I mean, Anakin might as well have been wearing a MAGA hat. Anyway,
gotta make the Force great again.
Yep. The Force great again. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
But I mean, like it's very poignant. It's very prescient to today's political goings on. I mean, you had somebody in a position of power. And you had people that trusted that person intrinsically, and you had that powerful person spitting lies and manipulations and getting this otherwise reasonable and like well-meaning individual so fucking riled up about the wrong thing that they went off and did something unforgivable.
What? They made Little Mermaid black? I'm outraged. Anyway, I want to say that the ending dialogue here with Obi-Wan and Anakin back and forth, it reminds me of poorly translated anime, where they're trying to discuss you can tell in the original anime they had a deeper philosophical back and forth going on. But when they translated it, there wasn't a one-to-one translation for what they were talking about. So rather than the dubbing team, rather than try to come up with a better thing that would better relate to Western audiences, they're like, oh, let's just put in generic terms like good and evil and the thing and the artifact, and we'll just do that, and people will get it. And it's like, it just feels a little lazy. And I mean, I get you're kind of at the wall here, you're trying to wrap this up, but like, man, you could have definitely put in something a little more concrete than just, tossing the words good and evil back and forth.
That would require
a better writer.
Really
I know.
Good, that would require a better writer.
I know.
Better dialogue.
Speaking of
like I said, there are definitely good points to be made from both Obi-Wan and Anakin's side. There are absolutely good points to be made, but none of those exist right now. We have to get to the longest battle, the largest lightsaber fight in history. So
let's dive into that, because it seems like you have a problem with it.
Well, no, I mean, I 100% loved the fight. I really, really did, and I think everything except the dialogue really delivers for me.
Okay.
If you're like I said at the beginning of this is a movie that requires a lot of buy-in. And if you kind of gloss over the flaws, the movie does a really good job of getting you like emotionally driven. You've got John Williams' score going nuts. You've got you've got Anakin looking imposing, but also just at his heart being that little kid who doesn't want to see his loved ones die. You've got, Obi-Wan's heart breaking because this guy that he considered to be a brother, just went off and did something unforgivable, and now he has to go fucking kill him. You have a lot of emotional hooks, and a lot of the scene and the music does a really good job of making that lightsaber fight so fucking impactful. It's just that the dialogue falls flat for me.
Yeah. I'll say I think the fight was a little over the top. There were a lot of great moments in it, for sure. But I definitely think that once they're, fighting on top of the lava river, it's like, okay, guys, there's a lot of problems I have here with physics and shit. Y'all probably should just get back to the shore right now so I don't complain about it.
The ending of the fight definitely was weak. And the high ground was just, what? Sure. All right. Fucking why not?
This movie didn't have the high ground standoff. You know what I mean? Oh,
it really didn't. It had no legs to stand on.
Oh, speaking of no legs to stand on, let's talk about Padme for a minute. Oh, right, she's dead.
Yeah, she did.
Why did Padme need to die?
Because she wasn't in the original trilogy.
I mean, that's fair, but also 20 years. 15 to 20 years passed between the events of that film and this film. Surely she could have just died in between at that point and we would have been fine. There's even dialogue written in the original trilogy where it sounds like what's her name? Leia remembers her mom. It is there. So there's no reason for her necessarily to die here, I don't think.
I think the main story reason why she had to die was to bring Anakin's self-fulfilling tragedy full circle. Not only because it's the fear of Padme's oncoming death that really drives him to do all this crazy shit. And the ultimate cruel twist of irony is that all of the things that he did to prevent her death actually caused her death. So that kind of puts the nail in his coffin, and really solidifies his becoming Darth Vader. I don't think Anakin like fully becomes like the menacing fucking tower of evil without Padme dying. So that's why.
I'm gonna disagree a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's wrong. But, I don't think Padme needed to die to prove that point. I think it would have been just as on point had he done everything in his power to keep her alive, only to lose her anyway. Because she would have been like, no, I can't do this with you. I'm done. And, leaves anyway. Because that happens in real life a lot of the time anyway. People make big decisions and take big actions for people they love in hopes that they can, save a relationship or keep a marriage together or anything like that, only for it to fall apart because the actions they chose don't quite make that happen. The people that they do it for don't actually like what you're doing. Again, referencing back to Breaking Bad. He does all this drug stuff, and she realizes, oh, no, I'm not gonna follow you into this. Now, she does for a short bit still, but the point still is that is what breaks that relationship apart. She doesn't have to die for Walter to learn the lesson, and I don't think Padme needed to die for him to learn the lesson here either.
Yeah, but do you think that Anakin is the kind of guy who, if Padme was said, you know what, fuck this, I'm leaving you, that he would just let that happen?
I feel like he had already given up on her when he thought she betrayed him to Obi-Wan, which I have a question about, by the way.
I don't think so. I think he was pissed. I definitely think he was pissed, but I don't think he gave up on her. I don't think he wrote her off. It was because it's only when the Emperor says, like, well, it appears that in your anger you killed her. It's just like, oh shit, no, oh god.
I do have a question though about the Anakin being pissed the minute Obi-Wan steps on the platform.
Okay.
Was there supposed to be some kind of possible misunderstanding, love triangle going on that Anakin misinterpreted throughout the film that we didn't really get? Because I feel like there were breadcrumbs of it, but they didn't lead anywhere. And then he just suddenly flips out, like, you were with him? And I'm like, are you implying something more? Because, I mean, if you just stop for a minute and realize how dumb that sounds, you know that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. At least I didn't read that. I didn't read that subtext. I think it was straight up like when he saw her when he saw him on her ship. It was like he thought that Padme brought Obi-Wan here to stop him or possibly to kill him, which he pretty much straight out says. And of course, Padme had no fucking idea that Obi-Wan had slipped onto the ship. Obi-Wan went to her, told her what the fuck was going on, and then knew that she would go find him so that he could just hitch a ride with her, which was really, really slick. And I think that's where the misunderstanding happened. Like, he saw Obi-Wan and was like, oh, Padme brought him here to kill me. Well, shit. And Padme looked and said, oh god, he stowed away. I didn't want him here. I wanted to try and get through to him.
I wonder if Obi-Wan feels bad that it's his fault that happened. Like, it's not directly his fault, I know, but, like, I wonder if he feels any guilt, like, oh, if I hadn't done that, maybe Padme would still be alive.
Nah, because remember the discount Big Hero 6 robot said that physically she was perfectly fine, and that essentially she was dying of a broken heart because, like, she had witnessed with her own eyes just how far Anakin had fell.
Yeah.
It wasn't the choking that killed her. It was just
cardiac
oh my god, the love of my life is a monster.
Cardiac arrest is a real bitch, I tell you.
Yeah.
Last question. I alluded to this in the first episode we did for this series. Ryan, can a good sequel to anything exist, or are all prequels doomed to failure? I would argue that a good prequel can exist, but I don't think it needs to be a like this. I don't think it needs to be a direct prequel to what we had. I think a prequel exploring the deeper lore that informs the original stuff could be good, but to literally tell how the most terrifying force in the universe comes from this little child and seeing his story, I don't know if that's necessary, per se.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that a good prequel can be made, and my case in point for this is Rogue One, because that was an amazing movie, and it led perfectly into A New Hope. I 100% love that. I think where this movie faltered is because you're essentially trying to tell a prequel to a saga, and the original trilogy was fairly self-contained because the importance of the story was happening in real time. It wasn't like, oh, well, all this, that, and the other happened, and that's what led to this. It was saying, okay, in this point in time, there's this group of rebels trying to fight against the Emperor. You find out that one of the main rebels is actually the son of, like, the most terrifying person in the galaxy, and he has to try and fight his father. Meanwhile, everybody's just trying to overthrow the Empire and bring peace back to the galaxy. It was very self-contained, and you could do all your storytelling within that realm. Where the prequels kind of had an impossible task because there was so much lore alluded to in the original trilogy, and the prequel trilogy tried to tell all of that lore, and that's too hard to do.
Yeah.
It was unable to be like as focused and as centralized as the original trilogy because you had to follow multiple groups of people over a course of like 30 years, as opposed to one group of people over like 3.
I'm trying to think of how you could have handled it better. But I look back at other prequels I've seen, and I'm not as hot on Rogue One as you are. I don't think it's bad, but I do think that it has the same problem I have with a bunch of other sequels or prequels. Sorry.
What? What is it?
So the prime example I have for a prequel I think is bad is Insidious Chapter 3. In it, the old woman from the first movie were regaled the story of one of her cases that got her back into the whole ghost hunting thing, the whole exorcism thing. And on paper that sounds cool. However, in a horror film, nothing kills the tension more than knowing that the characters are going to live. And since she has to be around for that first movie, I'm not at all worried about anything. She's invincible for this movie as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's kind of the problem I have with a lot of prequels, where the tension of the story doesn't really exist because I know that things are going to turn out alright, because otherwise the movie they're trying to prequel to can't happen, and you can't do that, or it's not really a prequel. Rogue One kind of has a similar thing where you know they're going to get their plans, and you know that's what's going to happen, so the success-failure of that isn't really into question. The draw of it is the interaction between the characters, and depending on your mileage, I know people who aren't really into it, I think they're fine, but they're not really, like, the biggest deal for me, personally. But I get that people are into them more than others, so I get that that's going to be where you get your bread and butter for Rogue One. But a lot of prequels, in general, from what I've seen, suffer from that lack of tension, basically.
I mean, I think it's possible to maintain tension despite knowing what the outcome is going to be. Because for me, the tension in the prequel trilogy is seeing this, like, tragedy take place. Like, we already know a tragedy is going to happen. We know by the end of this third movie, the entirety of the Jedi Order has to fall. The Empire has to rise. And like Anakin has to become Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan has to fight his closest friend. We already know these things have to happen, but the tension for me is actually seeing how it unfolds and living the emotional impact of those things happening. I think that's where the big that's where the big draw in a prequel lies, because you can't really have uncertainty, because like you said, you know the ending of the prequel has to line up with the story. The prequels the prequel's aim then, in my opinion, isn't to like give you something that you don't know what's going to happen, but rather it puts everything that comes after it into a different perspective. You see things differently now, knowing the entire setting of the story.
Well, so here's how I envision a good prequel. And this is going to come off as very arrogant, probably, but Ryan, you remember reading the book I've been penning for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you completed the whole thing that I have, at least that draft I sent you, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so in the book, this is going to be spoilers for people who are out there, but who knows how that's going to play out? We'll see. Spoilers. So in the book, the final battle takes place essentially, or one of the big battles near the end, takes place in an underground city, which is the ruins of an ancient civilization. And for a while, I have already had a prequel in the works planned for that, because not only will it be kind of how that city fell in the first place, but it leads to the origin of an entirely different villain later in the series, and it's all kind of connected that way. And it has no direct connection beyond that to the main characters of the main series, so you aren't questioning whether or not, oh, hey, how does this person get involved? It's like, no, we're not going to worry about those guys. We're going to worry about this ancient history and how it's informing the current era now. Because I think that is something that's interesting to discuss when it comes to prequels, which is the ancient history that leads up to what's going on now.
Yeah.
Because that's and the things that the characters are learning from. That's something I think would be very interesting to explore.
Definitely. And I don't think our two opinions on that necessarily
Clash.
they don't necessarily clash. I mean, because all in all, it offers you a new perspective on the shit that you've already seen.
Yes.
You know? So, I mean, I think that's my landing point. Prequels can definitely be done well, but you're not going to get the same thing out of a prequel than you are getting out of the current telling of the story, because the current telling of the story, everything is up in the air. You don't know what's going to happen. The prequel, you already know the end point, but you want to see the differences in how everything actually lined up and how we came to this point and all of the other things that informed how the storyline plays out. So yeah, and I think Rogue One is a good job, does a good job of it in this setting, because they offer a vastly different perspective on the rebellion, rather than just having them be a group of plucky heroes who want nothing more than to restore peace to the galaxy and fight for justice and truth. But you have these dark, gritty guys who have lost everything and have given every bit of morality that they had in themselves in order to push forward this agenda that they believe in their heart of hearts is right. And that really starts questioning whether the ends justify the means, and you have a band of essentially assassins, but they're still fighting to overthrow the Empire. So does that make them good? Is the rebellion in and of itself a completely good thing? Or the dark things that they're undertaking to really find success, is that tainting their message a bit? That's, I think, was the ultimate success of Rogue One. It got you to look at the rebellion in a different way.
And that's fair, because I do think you're right. It does kind of show a different side of the rebellion you're not used to. I can counter that a little bit. So yeah, I think that's a good place to close out on the prequel trilogy. Next week we'll definitely hit the new trilogy. But before we do that, quick shout out to the mailbag. If you want to reach out to us on Tumblr, Twitter, or Facebook, you can go there to give us your thoughts on prequels, the prequel trilogy, or Anakin's, hot topic face, whatever you want to do. And if you want to reach out to us directly to talk about why the Jedi are wrong, Ryan, what's that email?
They can reach us at You Were the Chosen One! Excuse me. At evacstation@gmail.com.
Indeed. Ryan, time to rank this film real quick. On a scale of the platinum to shit, it's all in the links down below. You can tell us where you think you would go. Ryan, how would you rank this film?
So, for all its faults, I definitely think it has improved on its two predecessors. I definitely think there are some good moments. And again, if you buy into this completely, it's a very emotional ride and it has a lot going for it. I am actually going to go ahead and give this a silver.
I will probably jump on that bandwagon with you. I don't by no means hate this film. I think there's a lot to enjoy here if you are a big fan of Star Wars. I don't know how next week's going to rank, because I have traditionally never been super hip on New Hope. I don't hate it, but I do think its sequels are much more fun for me. But I'm looking forward to getting to that one next week. But yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen A New Hope. That's going to be very interesting.
Indeed. Unfortunately, I think all I have is the Blu-ray remastered version, so it's going to have all that... It's going to have all that shit in there. But yeah, thanks for joining us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for this being a long one, but I kind of expect this one to get a little bit chatty. So tune in next week for A New Hope, and we'll see you after the credits.
Bye.